Hello, everybody, and welcome to another deep, in-depth, probing analysis of a Kings of War tournament. All four of my games from Let Slip the Dogs of War, a 20-player tournament that took place on Saturday. And this was put on by the Northern Kings at the Outpost in Sheffield. And I'm pretty sure it's a totally different outpost to the last time I was at the Outpost in Sheffield. I'm sure it's a different building. But anyway, the scoring for this tournament, if you followed the last couple of reports, very similar. The last one that was put on by these same people, in fact, which was the Cry Havoc tournament, where I finished third, then the scoring is very similar to that, but there's a slight difference, but I'm not sure it really affects much. You get 15 points for a win, 10 for a draw, 5 for a loss, rather than 10 for a win, 5 for a draw, 0 for a loss. So it's maybe to make people feel better if they lose heavily. So at least you get some points, even if it doesn't really make any difference to the leaderboard. Then you get bonus kill points of up to 5 based on how much you killed, which they've made more difficult than most tournaments do. To get the maximum number of bonus points, you need to kill 1,900 points of the 2,000. So it's not as easy to get maximum points here. And there's another bonus of 5 points available depending on how many games, how many points you get in the game in the scenario. So there's a maximum of 5 available there. And the way that tournaments have been running it, the last couple I've been to, is that you get a bonus point for each victory point you get in the game up to a maximum of 5. But in this tournament, it was amended a little bit. So certain scenarios where, for example, it would have previously been on unit strength to get victory points to win the game. That's still the case, but for the bonus tournament points, then it was on the number of scoring units rather than the unit strength. So a little bit more difficult to get those points as well. So moving away from just lots of 20 nils, basically, which is nice, I think. Having it slightly more difficult means that if you do absolutely crush somebody, it feels pretty damn good. It's worth more than just slightly crushing somebody. And let's go on to a picture from game 1, shall we? So I can go through my list. Now, slight difference from the last tournament. And for anyone that's getting bored of my Goblin Rocklobber lists, you won't have to put up with it for too much longer, because I'm thinking that after Clash of Kings, I'm going to switch to a totally different army for a few months. So we'll see how that goes. But here we go. I've got a Rabble Horde, which you can see here in the middle, which looks like it's been split in half because it's on a hill there. Then the 3 Troll Hordes, of course, one with the Dwarven Ale, one with the Chalice of Wrath, and one with absolutely nothing because I had no points left over in this list. Then, this is a new thing I've been trying, 2 units of Fleabag Rider Sniffs, 2 regiments. So typically it would be 1 for each flank, depending on the opposition. Because I think they're very underrated, and I'll go into why as they prove their worth or lack of worth, we'll see, throughout this tournament. 2 War Trombones, couldn't afford a third in this list. 3 Big Rock Throwers. 1 Flaggit rather than 2. This one has the Holy Hand Grenade, which is the less reliable of the 2 weapons I like to put on them, but it's the more potent against high defense targets. So I prefer that for when something like a dragon is going to land behind your lines. It's a bit more scary than something like the Diadem of Dragonkind, which is less likely to do wounds but has more shots. And also I like the grenade for if I come up against something like, let's say, Night Stalkers with all their stealth and standing in cover, and everything else finds it difficult to shoot at them. The Holy Hand Grenade does not, because it's not a breath weapon. It just always hits on 4. 2 Troll Bruisers with no upgrades. Then a Giant, which is a new thing. I haven't used a Giant in a tournament for quite a while. Just to move slightly away from shooting and slightly more towards combat. After the last tournament, where there were a few issues with my lack of fighting ability, then throwing the Giant in there, I think, should help with that. Then we've got Grogger's Great Lobber. So the 4th Rock Lobber, which is represented by the giant ball here. And the other 3 War Machines are the regular Rock Lobbers. So, and a slight change I made with my Rock Lobbers. It's not really going to make much difference in theory, but I usually use the big giant artillery dice there. You can see it's bigger than all the other dice. So I think it's psychological warfare, and it's more dramatic to have just a big juicy dice for these big juicy dice rolls that can potentially be devastating. But I found that that dice, purely for superstitious reasons, it seems to be totally bipolar. And some games it'll hit all the time, other games it'll hit 0 times throughout the game. So I'm just going to use random dice for this game. You'll also notice, if you've been paying attention to which dice I use, that the Ultibash 4 dice, which I used for the nerve tests for the last few tournaments, they are not here. I'm going to be using the Northern Kings dice from this tournament, the 2 that were given out, and the 2 from the previous tournament as well. So just in case anyone pays attention to the colour of my nerve dice, that explains the difference. Let's go into game 1 then. So here we are, and this is Invade against the Herd, which you may think is not a great matchup because Invade, you want to get into the opponent's half. Herd, typically they want to get right in your face as fast as possible. And it's a very, very potent fighting force there. And I've actually made notes on the opponent's armies for this tournament so that I can actually remember the names of their units, which makes a change. I won't just be calling them casters or that chaff unit or the elite cavalry, which I occasionally do. So let's have a closer look. So on this flank, I've got the Sniffs backed up by the Flaggets. The Flagget is going to spend most of this tournament most likely hanging around with one or both of the Sniff units, depending if they're deployed close together or not, because they need a little bit of inspiring near them so that counter chaff from the enemy won't just shoot them off in one go. And he's the only source of inspiring I've got that isn't a troll as well. Then on this hill, we've got the Rabble with trolls next to them and a bruiser with a trombone behind. There's quite a lot of blocking terrain on this table, so I'm having to position my war machines just to see through the various firing lanes. And you can see 2 of them here, the giant in the trees. If there's a bit of difficult terrain on my battle line, the giant is typically going to be deployed in there because he can just charge out of it unhindered. Then we've got the other trolls on this side with a bruiser between them, the other Sniffs backed up by a trombone, and the other 2 rock lobbers. I'll try to deploy my war machines last because they are really counters. In the case of the trombones, counters to enemy flyers, and the rock lobbers, I just want to put them in a position where they can see something at the start of the game so I can take the first turn if I get the chance and get shots off immediately and get them into the best firing lanes depending on where my opponent has deployed. Let's go on to the Herd. So this is on my right flank, so my opponent's left. We have Lycans, we have a Chimera that can fly, we have a Lycan Alpha, and that has the Warbow of Cabba, which is, I don't think I've seen anyone take that, but if you've got 5 points left over, it's one of those little items that some people throw in. Then there's some more Lycans in there, just a small unit of them though, that's just a regiment, and the one on the end is a horde. Then we have a Beast Pack that you can see there, a Stampede, which is represented by a lot of bears, another Beast Pack, so those are the fast chaff unit. The Stampede are the really dangerous things that I'm going to be targeting mainly with my rock lobbers when I get the opportunity, because they do hit like a truck. You don't want to be hit by them, especially with the changes to certain rules. Any units that have a lot of thunderous charge you have to be careful for now. Although it didn't make that big of a difference to the Stampede because I think they already had Strider and Pathfinder regardless. Then we've got some Harpies there. And on this flank we have another Stampede. This is represented by little, I think they're goats or reindeer or something, but their horns are around about groin height, so you do have to be careful. And the interesting thing about Stampede, I believe they are height 3, which means that my rock lobbers can see them over the top of my trolls. Then there are some Centaur Bray Hunters there, and they have Blessing of the Gods, so they're the unit I'm worried about shooting my Sniffs. So that's why I've got my Inspiring on this side of the table, in case they get into a shooting war. And there is a, what's he called? There we go, Centaur Chief there as well. So like the boss version of that unit there. And turn 1. Well, my opponent wins the roll-off, but elects to go second, which I found odd because, of course, you would think Stampede would want to get in your face as fast as possible. But then, of course, you have to consider when going first or second the scenario as well. if there's a possibility that you can perhaps leap into scoring areas in the last turn. Interesting, but that's probably not what I would have done against my list, because there is quite a lot of shooting goodness. All my long-range shooting is going to be able to fire in turn 1, because the sniffs can move just out of the deployment area and shoot without hindrance, which is why I like them more than, let's say, the spitters, because when I'm going to take turn 1 pretty much every chance I get, and the spitter horde generally has to move forward an inch to shoot, which means they hit on 6s suddenly. But the sniffs, because I'm always looking for that first turn, they can just edge a little bit forward and still shoot without any kind of penalty. So that's why I like them in this list. So I've pushed forward on this side. It is invade after all, so I'm moving up. And over here, I'm not flying, and I'm not going up as fast as possible necessarily, because I don't want to get to within charge range of anything yet. But I do want to be up there so that I'm engaging the enemy kind of in the middle of the table rather than in my half, because then if it gets into a war of attrition and it takes me a while to chew through them, it would be difficult to actually win the scenario then and get into the opposition half. So I do want to be a slight distance forward here. Okay, so first round of rock lobbers for this tournament. What do they do? Well, one of them hits, and well, actually the 2 of them might have hit there, because it looks like 9 damage has been put onto this Stampede. So with 4 rock lobbers, one of them being elite, you expect to get 1 or 2 hits a turn. Usually 1, but sometimes 2. So putting some damage on the Stampede nice and early, which is going to make them more difficult to accomplish anything with. They can't just be thrown in willy-nilly now. And that's what you want with the rock lobbers. You want, if you're shooting at something like ogres or cavalry, if they have a break value of somewhere around 17, you want to get something like 5+ damage on them before you go into combat using something like trolls. And that way, in one hit, a horde of trolls can take something out like that when it's already on a few points of damage from a rock lob. That's the main thinking here. I'm not necessarily always trying to take units off with the rock lobbers, just trying to put damage on them so that I can kill them in one hit in combat rather than getting into a drawn-out fight with them. The Fleabag Sniffs on this side, which is on my left flank, they do waver the Centaur Bray Hunters, which is nice, with 5 damage. So that's a good start, and it's a good start for the shooting war that's probably going to take place between these 2 units. So anytime you can waver them, that's very handy, because they're not going to be shooting back now. On this side, these Sniffs, they don't have quite as much success. They put 1 damage onto the Lycans, but it's a start. I think they do have regen, possibly, though. Herd turn 1. Now, you can see I didn't put anything within charge range, so everything has moved up. I believe every single unit moved up as fast as it could, pretty much. So this Chaff has moved up to block here. The Stampede has moved up. I think this Stampede is possibly the only thing that... Actually, no, it is chargeable. I'll get to that in a minute. I think everything that moved forward can potentially be charged by something. So there's the middle. On this side, the wavered Bray Hunters didn't move. They didn't move forwards anyway. I'm not sure if they moved back. The Centaur Chief, though, did move up a bit and is going to start pinging off some shots down here in a minute. Over here, the Beast Pack moved up to chaff up the Giant a bit, and the Wounded Stampede has moved up. Now, it's moved into charge range of these trolls here, which is pretty much what I wanted to happen, but I can kind of understand it, because if it stayed back, then I would be able to get back out of the Stampede's charge range next turn if I wanted to, and then I would have still been able to shoot them. So I can kind of understand that thinking there. On this side, all this slot has moved up as well. I think I've got something in charge range of everything, apart from possibly the Lycan Alpha. So we'll see how that goes. It's a very, very bold first turn anyway for the herd, putting literally everything up as fast as possible, apart from the unit that was wavered, pretty much. And my turn 2. So the Fleabag Sniffs over here, what do they do this time? Well, they waver them again. I believe they'd been healed up a bit by the Shaman. Oh, where is the Shaman? Let's see if I can find a picture. I don't think I mentioned that. I think the Shaman was hidden somewhere. There it is. I'm not sure if I mentioned that when I was running through the army list, but the Shaman does have some healing abilities and was able to heal some wounds upon them. So you can see I've got them back up to 5 and wavered them again. Here, so the 2 chaff units, there was a Beast Pack and the Harpies. They were charged by the Rabble, the Trolls, and then the Troll Bruiser actually had space to fit through right there. So if the Beast Pack had positioned themselves slightly more this way, the Bruiser wouldn't have been able to get into the Stampede. But because he was, that means that they're on 2 damage and they're going to lose their Thunderous Charge now. Now, they might still kill the Bruiser. We'll see. But he's also blocking them up, stopping them getting to the Trolls. And I want Hordes to survive here because for winning the scenario, they're, of course, worth a lot. Worth 3 points in unit strength for getting into the opposing half, whereas the Bruiser's only worth 1. Over here, the Giant took out the Beast Pack that were in front of him, and those Trolls did charge and finish off the heavily wounded Stampede. Over on this side, Harambe the Bruiser and the Troll unit. This is the Troll Horde that doesn't have any upgrade on it, by the way. They double charge into the Lycans. It looks like I've got 11 or 12 damage on them there, but the double 1 comes up. And I believe I used my reroll and still got a 1 as well. So you get 1 reroll per game at this tournament of a single dice. It can't be for the first turn or choosing sides or turn 7 or a roll off. It has to be one of your own dice rolls, and I used it there, rolled a 1 again, so double 1. Wow, that could put a spanner in the works. So there's the lay of the land at the end of turn 2 for me. So it's going pretty well so far. That double 1 could mess things up a bit. It also looks like the small unit of Lycans was killed as well. What was it that did it for them? Let me see. I think I shot them off with something. I believe that's where they were. Let's just go back and check, shall we? Yes, there they are. That unit, they were killed by shooting, which I believe was from the War Trombone, actually, which you can see down there. I think that tromboned them off in one go. I didn't get a good picture of that, though. Oh, yeah, there we go. So it was the Rock Lobbers helped out as well. One of the Rock Lobbers hit, and I think the trombone did as well. Turn 2 for the herd. And the Centaur Chief decides to charge into my Sniffs on my left flank. A bold move, but it's going to stop them advancing. And that model should be centered up, but there's a hill there, so it wasn't standing up. So you'll see a few instances in this tournament where units won't stay in place on the hill. So occasionally you have to use your imagination a bit. They get healed up again, back to 2, by the Shaman. The Stampede, of course, is going to go back into the Bruiser because they can't angle to reach anything else. Over here, this is the glorious countercharge that could turn the tide of this one. After double one-ing these Lycans, it means that they're able to charge the Trolls, the Chimera into the Sniffs, and the Lycan Alpha into Harambe the Bruiser. Now, some people, I'm sure, would have double charged the Trolls here to try and get rid of them. But it depends how confident you're feeling and how desperate your need to kill multiple units is. But I can't see Harambe being killed in one go by the Lycan Alpha. And yeah, there you go. Not too much damage done in those 2 combats there. So fairly poor rolling from the Lycans there to only do 3 damage to the Trolls. Chimera does 5 to the Sniffs, but doesn't kill them. The Stampede does take out the Bruiser in the center, though, which is okay because he's bought me some time, so I can now charge in with this Rabble, and there's some Trolls down here as well. 4 damage put onto these Sniffs from the Chief there, but they're inspired, so they're all right. Turn 3 for the Goblins then. So that's how it's looking at round about the start of my turn 3 here. Well, it looks like I just took that picture twice. There you go. So, Rock Lobbers in turn 3, what do? they kill the Centaur Brie Hunters, finish them off, the ones that were being healed up the whole game. They're now dead. So I think it was just one Rocklobber hit that did it for them. So the Rocklobbers being pretty average so far, which is what I want the Rocklobbers to do in a game. I would rather them get one hit guaranteed per turn than, for example, hitting all the time in 2 games and never in 2 others. I would like them to just be nice and average so I can count on them. And I can plan accordingly then. So these Sniffs that were wounded, so they won't be able to shoot anyone, they're going to just go back in there, try and kill him. In the middle, the Rabble and the Trolls double charge into the Stampede. Only get 8 damage on them though, so not going to be enough to kill them yet. Over here, the Giant that was facing over in this direction was able to charge into the flank of the Lycan Alpha, which is dead, and Harambe, the Bruiser, and the Troll Horde double charged into the Lycan unit, I believe. So both of those were killed, and the Chimera's only taken 2 damage on the counter charge from the Sniffs, though, so it's probably going to kill them next time. It does mean it can't fly, though, which is potentially important. And there you can see how it's looking at the end of that turn. So it's looking very good for the Goblins at the moment, and it seems like it's going to be a mopping up operation, because even if that Stampede gets through the Trolls here, which isn't any guarantee because they've lost their Thunderous Charge now, then there's still a War Trombone and some Rocklobbers behind them. And this flank is going very well, of course. So my opponent is rapidly running out of scoring units as well. So if I can just get a couple of hordes into enemy territory, then that's pretty much going to be a win. It's just looking like how much I can kill at the moment. So Herd, turn 3. Stampede into the Trolls, as expected. The Chief back into the Sniffs. And the Shaman, I think, tries to Bane Chant, probably, the Stampede. I can't remember whether that is successful, though. Or no, heals them, yeah. It's a heal, definitely, because they're back to 5 wounds now. Now, they do waver these Trolls, but this is the unit with Dwarven Ale, so they will get a chance to ignore that. Over here, another point of damage onto the Sniffs. Again, not enough, though. The Chimera does kill off the Sniffs on my right flank, though, which I'm not terrified of, because I've left the Giant and Harambe the Bruiser facing in this direction, so they're going to eat that thing for breakfast while the Trolls just run away. My turn 4. So, the Stampede is dead. It was double charged by the Trolls, which successfully passed the Dwarven Ale roll and the Rabble. And I think the Rabble were actually in the flank as well. So when at the end of the combat, they were able to turn this way. Over here, Harambe the Bruiser and the Giant kill off the Chimera. The Trolls are just going that way for the scenario points. And there's how it's looking right now. So the Herd are left only with a Shaman and a Centaur Chief, by my reckoning. And I've got almost everything left. I've lost a Bruiser. I've lost... that might actually be all at this stage. Turn 4 for the Herd. So again, this battle's going on between the Chief and the Sniffs. The Shaman actually charges into the Rebel Horde. They get wavered. And that's the only thing that really happened there. Turn 5 for the Goblins now. And the Rabble and the Trolls double charge the Shaman and kill it. Advancing forward into enemy territory for the scenario. Other units doing the same. Herd, turn 5. So the Centaur Chief finally kills off the Sniffs over on this flank, so more casualties inflicted there. And that's that for the turn. That's the only model left for the Herd. Turn 6 for the Goblins. So Rocklobber hits. War Trombone hits. Grenade hits. Fleabag Sniffs hit. Wait a sec. Let's see. No, the Chief didn't actually kill the Sniffs over on this flank. The Chief just ran away from them to target the War Machines, I think. That's what it's looking like. So all that shooting into this unit, into this model here, look at all that damage. 19, but double 1 in the final turn, potentially, unless it's turn 7. So that means, let's see, what have we got after that? There's the layout after turn 6. And you can see that I've got plenty of units into enemy lines. But, of course, the herd are going to have a chance to kill something because that model is still alive against all the odds. And unless I get a turn 7, that means I'm going to be deprived of a tournament point because that model is worth just over 100 points, which would put me slightly below the threshold to get maximum kill points. So turn 6, the chief does actually kill one of the Rocklobbers. So some kill points there for the herd, although I did incorrectly say that one of the sniff units had died when it hadn't. So there's what's left at the end. The sniffs over there were killed, and the bruiser was killed, and a Rocklobber was killed, and I think that's all. And I killed everything apart from this Centaur chief. So there is no turn 7, so the final score, I get 15 points for the win, 5 for the bonus victory points because I've got at least 5 scoring units into enemy territory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. 6 maybe. So maximum 5 though, and then I get 4 for kill points because of that one model being double wand in the final turn. So that's a good start, slightly below maximum points, which occasionally scoring slightly below maximum points in game 1 can benefit you, because if there's someone that just steamrolled their opponent in the first game and has an absolutely killer list, occasionally they'll have picked up maximum points and you can possibly avoid them by scoring just below that. It's not really a strategy I would ever intentionally use because it's risky, because you never know. The person who's got the ultimate killer steamroller list might have got really unlucky in the first game and just got slightly below maximum points, like for the same reasons I did here with a double one. So you never know, and you should never really take an opportunity to give yourself less points. It's very rare that you'll know for a fact that it's worth doing that. Unless, for example, someone else's game's finished and they've come over to your table and said, I just got a huge win there, and it's someone you know you want to avoid because their army matches up really well with yours, and then you just decide not to attack a unit in the last turn so you don't get maximum points. But I've never really seen anyone do that, and it would be very rare that it would actually work out in your favor, I think. Okay, game 2. This is going to be against salamanders, and it's going to be the control scenario. So that is where the board is divided up into 6 squares, and for each one you control by having more unit strength in it at the end, that's worth 1 victory point and 2 victory points if you control the central square on your opponent's half. So salamanders on table 1, you don't see that very often. People do underrate them though. I think you can make some good lists out of the salamanders options. They don't traditionally do well at tournaments though, from what I've seen. So you can see here that I've got a big chunk over here and a small chunk down in this corner. There's the house here that's blocking, that's a piece of impassable terrain, which is, it's kind of protecting this flank of the trolls here. So you can see why I haven't really felt the need to deploy anything right there. So my strategy here is to go nuts with the double sniffs on this side for the shooting, because I think I can win the chaff war, and I've got them both inspired as well, and I've spread out my Rocklobbers. So let's go through the lists then. So there's that little shooting death pit that I've got there, because my opponent does have some shooty units, some kind of some vanguarding shooting units that I'm concerned about. So I wanted to get both of these inspired. And there's also a kind of an artillery piece as well. So in the middle, we've got Bruiser, another Bruiser, so all the trolls are nice and inspired. The Rabble Horde there are actually behind the hill, I think. I think the Giant is technically on it, mostly. 2 trombones behind, Rocklobber there, and another one right in the corner there. And for the opposition, we have, as I refer to my notes to get the names of everything correct, we have a Fire Drake here, which is hiding from some of the Rocklobbers, but not all of them. It wasn't able to hide from the lot of them, so it just hid from as many as possible. There is some Ancients on Rhinosaurs there. And there's 2 units of these. One of them has the Chant of Hate for Vicious, but I'm not sure which one it is. It looks like this one's got a card behind it, though, so probably this one. Then there's another unit of them there. There are 3 units of Corsairs, which are these kind of short-range shooting units, and they've got Firebrand with them as well, who is a little character. And they all have Vanguard, and the formation gave them all elite, I think, as well. There's a horde of fire elementals with the Brew of Haste, which makes them faster than trolls now, so that's something of a concern. 2 big units of juicy cavalry, and fire elementals all faster than my trolls, so the giant speed is going to be very helpful, potentially there. There is a big unit of Ancients, which are the ultimate killer nasty infantry of the Salamanders. At the back there is a Mage Priest with the Martyr's Prayer, and I believe that's the spell where you heal a unit and take the wounds onto yourself, and it also has Inspiring Talisman. Over on this flank, there's the 3rd unit of Corsairs there, and there's a Comadon, which is it's kind of like a bolt thrower, but it's also a monster. So I want to shoot these 2 units down and control this flank. So turn 1. Now, my opponent gets the choice by winning the roll-off and elects to go first, as they probably should do against my list. The vanguarding units are obviously going to be able to move up and shoot in turn 1, since they're already a little distance forwards. So mostly in advance. The Fire Drake is hiding behind these woods, so even less of the Rocklobbers will be able to shoot it now, I think. And there's a lot of difficult terrain and height 4 woods all over the tables at this tournament, which isn't ideal for Rocklobbers, but there are some firing lanes as well. You just have to deploy them correctly. And when I've got quite a lot of drops as well compared to some people, so it's not that difficult to get at least a couple of Rocklobbers deployed at the end. These Corsairs move up towards my double sniff block there. And these ones are moving up in the middle, and they're going to start shooting at my trolls. And you can see they do 5 damage immediately. So I don't want to leave this unit just being shot to bits. Turn 1 for me now. You can see I've moved up. I've put the rabble in first with the giant behind, so that the giant cannot be charged by any of this cavalry. Because I would like them to charge into the rabble. If they kill them, the giant and the bruiser are primed to go in. So I think this is height 3 cavalry here, so I could even see them over the hill even if I had something behind. I've got my trolls in a little block there, one behind the other, because the enemy do have quite a few hard-hitting units, and they're, for the most part, they're faster than what I've got. So I don't want them all charging into different targets in one go and possibly killing multiple units. So if they're going to go in, they'll only be able to get 1 with their superior speed, and then I'll be able to countercharge still. Over here, these trolls that were wounded, I don't think I did very well on the regen, so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to throw them into combat, because if they stand here, they're going to get shot to bits again. So I throw them into Firebrand, put damage on him. I was hoping to kill him and then overrun, but his nerve is actually pretty good. I should have actually looked at the army list before deciding, and maybe I could have charged into one of these units instead, but I didn't overrun him successfully. But these trolls are just out there now. Over here, the sniffs move, but I accidentally forgot to move the Flaggett, which means that those guys aren't inspired anymore. I did shoot and put some damage onto these Corsairs, though, with my sniffs, and this Comadon in the back corner there is wavered as a result of my other sniffs. So that's nice. Only 3 damage and a waver. Can't argue with that. It's going to stop it shooting at me. Rocklobber, what does it do in turn 1? Well, it puts, I think that's 4 damage there. It's hard to see in the pictures with these little counters people use, but there's some damage put onto the Ancients on Rhinosaurs there. And you can also see this big guy's taken damage as well. So I think it was possibly another Rocklobber that did that. So 2 Rocklobber hits, it looks like, in the first turn, which is nice. Again, not hoping to kill things in one go, just trying to whittle damage onto them bit by bit. And there's how it's looking. So in terms of the scenario, what my plan pretty much is, I think I can take this flank with relative ease, and my opponent doesn't have anything else really that I'm worried about over here, apart from there's the Comadon at the back there and this unit of Corsairs. I can kill them, I think, quite handily with what I've got down here. And then I can then swing round the back with these sniffs possibly and threaten to claim his central area and possibly this corner as well, depending how it's going. So I am thinking about the scenario at all times. Bit of bit of a meat fest going to go on in the middle. There's a ton of units there, so if I can control the flank, that's going to give me an advantage. Turn 2 for the Salamanders. So in they go. They go into the unit that's not inspired because of my foolishness and forgetting to move the Flaggit. And these trolls that went into Firebrand to put damage on him, they get double charged as a result of that failed attempt by the Fire Elementals and a unit of Corsairs, which isn't ideal. But on the other hand, if we think about my game plan, it is keeping units here, so I can. It's bringing them forward, so I can swing around the back. And if I can get into the central area back there with one or both of these units, then the enemy will have to consider maybe turning something around if I can get all the way around there. As long as they're moving forward in the middle. This big guy moves into the woods here. The trees have been moved off it, but they are woods. So he's going to get cover from certain shooting attacks. The Ancients and Rhinosaurs, one of the units charges into the Rabble Horde there. The other one's hanging back. They've positioned themselves so the giant can't charge them, wisely. Over here, there's some shooting, does some damage to the Bruiser next to the hill, puts him up to 2. And this big guy, the Fire Drake, I think he might have helped with that as well with his breath attack. Over here, the Corsairs only do 2 damage to the Sniffs, so luckily they're not dead because they're not inspired. And the Trolls do get killed in the middle there, which was expected after I failed to overrun him, because I should have really looked at his stats. But again, it is bringing enemy units kind of into this congested area so I can loop around them, hopefully. And here we have the Ancients and Rhinosaurs put 7 damage on there, so that's not going to be enough. They're going to need another round to kill that. And there's how it's looking at the moment. So a bit of a mixed bag. I've lost a unit of Trolls, but as far as the positioning and the scenario, I think it's looking fairly good, and I've got certain units whittled down in damage as well. You can see that, actually, let's go back a sec. This guy, I think, is on wounds because he took wounds off somebody else and used the Martyr's Prayer. And I think it was just the Fire Drake that did damage to the Bruiser. So slight correction there. Turn 2 for the Goblins. Rock Lobber, what does it do? Well, it kills off the Comadon. So that's nice. Managed to get that out of the way, so I don't have to chase it down. Trolls and the Rabble into this unit here of Ancients on Rhinosaurs. Piling up a fair bit of damage on them. I'm not committing the Giant in there yet. Still holding him back. I send the 2 Bruisers in. I'll show you the context of this charge here, because I think this is quite a good move. You see that unit there. Everything, the way things are facing, I noticed that if I charge my Bruisers, one of them was in the flank here on those Corsairs, the other one would be in the front. But after the combat, there would be very little he could actually do in terms of charging them. The Fire Elementals could charge one Bruiser, but the other one here would be safe from everything apart from shooting. So I thought if I throw both the Bruisers in there, that's going to cause a big roadblock in the middle of the opposition army. And you can see that his Ancients are kind of stuck behind his Elementals at this point. So if I get all the fighting in this area here, then he's not going to be able to get all his units in at the same time, which will allow me to finish off this flank and then maybe swing round to help out down there. So we've got the 2 Bruisers in there. They do kill the unit. This one's perfectly safe from everything. This one can be charged by maybe the Elementals or the Corsairs, but he's not overly concerned by that. The 2 War Trombones move up because they want to shoot the Fire Drake, and they waver it. So they've put quite a bit of damage on it, wavered, which is very, very important at this stage because I wouldn't want that thing to get behind my lines at all or to help out in a charge. So that's going to be very important, and I should be able to kill it next turn now because it's taken quite a bit of damage. The Sniffs are, well, there's just a random picture of the Sniffs. They must have, yeah, they killed the Corsairs that were here. That's right. So I've cleared this flank now. So this unit, I decide are going to go in this way and start firing off shots and distracting the enemy here. And this unit is just going to make a beeline for that table section there. So possibly just sitting on that hill, controlling it, controlling this section, with the option to move into that section there, which is the high scoring one, while firing off shots into the enemy. So swinging round, so that area is looking good. Turn 3 for the salamanders. So seeing this threat that I'm posing here, he moves Firebrand into the woods and the Corsairs here, and he's going to try and get some shots off towards my sniffs. I'm not sure whether they get in range to shoot yet. Down here, he countercharges the Rhinosaurs into the Troll Horde, sends the other one into the Rebel Horde. So potentially he could kill both those units now, but I do have some Trolls off camera down here on the right and the Giant there as well. And this guy is just hiding a bit. He puts 1 damage onto those sniffs, but that's not enough with Firebrand. Now, the Fire Elementals do waver Harambe the Bruiser, but I'm not worried by that at all because I've got another Bruiser here ready to tag into the combat. Because he's nimble, well, even if he wasn't nimble, I could still move backwards and do the same thing, but because he's nimble, I'll be able to kind of rotate 90 degrees and move backwards, maybe this way. So then this one can go in, and then they would have to countercharge him, and he's not been wounded yet. So that gives Harambe the Bruiser a chance to regenerate his wounds, and the Ancients are still kind of stuck back there. So when you've got nimble characters like this, even if they're not nimble, it can still work. But it's more helpful if you're nimble. You have more room to maneuver then. So you can just kind of tag in and out of combat. You don't always have to, because if it hadn't been wavered, for example, you don't necessarily have to send it back in. You can get this guy out of the way, tag in someone fresh so that they can't keep piling wounds onto the same one while you're regenerating. So we'll see how that goes. Now, he does kill the Rebel Horde with the Ancients and Rhinosaurs, and he does kill the Trolls as well. So I was hoping for maybe a little bit of luck there, but it wasn't the wildest thing that could happen. It wasn't totally unexpected that they died. I've been holding the Giant back, though, so he's ready to get involved now. Got a Giant there, I've got the Trolls, I've got the War Trombones, so it's not too bad, not as bad as it looks in that zone. And this flank is, of course, looking good. Turn 3 for the Goblins. So I start putting damage onto them, onto these Corsairs here, and onto Firebrand, lobbing a grenade and shooting at them. This unit moves up in this direction and turns so they can still shoot at him. As you can see, Harambe pivots and heads back down there, and this Bruiser tags in. So they're not going to be able to charge into Harambe the Bruiser next turn. They will have to go after this guy. And the Ancients are still stuck. The War Trombone kills off the Fire Drake, finishes it off as expected because it was already heavily damaged. But look at this. I charged the Giant and the Troll Horde both into the same unit that was already on a little bit of damage, I think, and double won them despite piling up. It was on double one. I think that purple possibly represents 5. The blue might be 10. So it's on a ton of damage and double won it. So it's lucky that I decided that the Trombone was going to move down here to block the flank charge from these Rhinosaurs into the Giant's flank there. So I moved that Trombone up and then used it to shoot at the Fire Drake, which is taller than they are. So it had cover, I think. Or I may have just fired straight into this unit, I can't remember. But either way, that Trombone, very lucky I decided to do that after double wanting these guys, because otherwise the Giant would be eating a charge in the flank now. There you can see the lay of the land. Going into Salamander's turn 4. Firebrand charges into my Flaggit. The Elementals charge back into this Bruiser. But again, that's kind of what I want to happen. I want them to just be able to tag in and out. We'll see how that goes, though. And these Rhinosaurs charge into the Troll Horde. These ones charge into the Trombone, of course. That's all they can do, really. So the Giant's going to be untouched this turn. You can see that Harambe the Bruiser does get hit by this guy. I think he has Fireball, possibly. So he goes up to 9 damage and he becomes wavered. So, wow. Hopefully this Bruiser doesn't get wavered as well. You can see he's slowly trying to free up his Ancients here. Bit more damage done from the Corsairs to my Sniffs. And here, no damage was done there, so I'm still going to be able to throw a grenade with him next turn. And here, his Rhinosaurs waver my Troll Horde there, but the unit with the Dwarven Ale So I'm going to have a chance to ignore that. These, of course, kill the trombone, as expected, but it was sacrificial anyway. Only 2 damage to the bruiser, so not a waver there, so that's nice. And there's how it's looking. So I think it's looking a lot better than it was a moment ago. If this unit of trolls had died, I would not be confident at all now. But the fact that they're only wavered and they have the Dwarven Ale, and I still have my reroll, I believe. So it's not looking bad. Turn 4. Well, just for extra confirmation that it's turn 4 for the goblins there. Okay. I land a grenade with the Flaggit onto the Firebrand and kill him. Then we've got the Sniffs kill off the Corsairs, so this flank is looking clear. Well, this flank was looking clear, and then he sent more units over here, and now it's been cleared again. So I just own this whole flank now again. In the middle, the Bruiser, well, look at how many wounds Harambe the Bruiser got back. I think it's 6 wounds he regenerated there. Then this Bruiser does some decent damage to the Elementals, so making a start on them. These Trolls, they failed their Dwarven Ale roll, but I think I used my re-roll to succeed, because it was very important, and I managed to get it and then finish off the Rhinosaurs there. And this Giant has gone into those ones to make a start on them. So he's got them up to, I think it's 4 or 5 damage. Not too many, but it's a start. And there's the Lay of the Land. So they, when countercharging, they've got a chance to kill the Giant, but I would expect it to hang on because it's got very high nerve. And in the middle, his Ancients are still jammed up. I don't think they've had a chance to fight anything yet today. So I made sure, once I charged in those 2 bruisers there, this whole area just became extremely congested, and they've had nothing to fight, because everything over here is too fast for them to catch. So there's not much they can do still. Turn 5 for the Salamanders. So again, the Elementals go back into this bruiser. These Ancients have finally freed themselves up a bit, and they've moved in this direction. They're trying to secure my central area by the looks of things, which would give them some victory points in the scenario. Rhinosaurs into the Giant. Now, these Trolls become wavered, so he must have fireballed them, this Mage Priest. Wavered again, but it's the Dwarven Ale unit yet again, so we'll see whether they can just ignore that for a second time. And the Giant does get killed in one go, so that's not ideal for me. So these Trolls here, if they don't ignore the effects of waver, that could be really bad. You'll see when we get a wide shot in a second. And this Bruiser becomes wavered in that combat, which is okay, because Harambe the Bruiser's fine to tag in again now. So you see how handy they've been in that little tag team there. There's the Lay of the Land. So if I fail my Dwarven Ale roll with these Trolls here, they'll be in prime position to just be munched on by this cavalry here, which could turn it into a very, very interesting game. If they pass their roll, I would expect them to charge into the Rhinosaurs and kill them, though, because they've already taken some damage. Turn 5 for the Goblins. So the Sniffs, what do? And the Rocklobber. And another Rocklobber. They kill off the Ancients. So the Ancients that have been stuck all game weren't able to fight anything. Now they've been hit by 2 Rocklobbers and the Sniffs, and they are dead. Wow. So there you go. Over here, the same thing again. This Bruiser turns around, backs away, and this one tags in, putting more damage onto the Elementals. So they are really stuck here. And these 2 should actually be level, because these should be exactly an inch. So that they should be aligned perfectly there. Just in case you were thinking that this unit could turn around and charge him, they should actually be perfectly aligned when they're an inch away there. The Trolls go in here, and they've stacked up some more damage, but they don't actually kill them, so they're looking a bit vulnerable now. They do pass their Dwarven Ale roll, though, and they've got them damaged, which means that this unit is probably not long for this world, because, of course, I have shooting attacks. I've got a Trombone still alive that can finish them off, even if they kill the Trolls now. So that's how it's looking. Elementals still alive, Rhinosaurs just still alive, but both those enemy units have taken mass damage, and the Shaman is still there as well. But it's looking very good for me in terms of the scenario. I've got this unit controlling down here, this unit which can pounce into the enemy central area to control that, or they can stay in here. So it looks like I'm probably going to win at this stage, unless it goes really badly this next turn. Turn 6 for the Salamanders. They only waver Harambe the Bruiser again, which means I'm going to be able to use the same strategy if I want to attack them again. Back him away, tag this one in. And Fireball 4 damage onto this one, but not enough to waver. These trolls do get killed by the Rhinosaurs, which isn't too unexpected, but they are heavily damaged still, as I was saying. So there's how it's looking. And I would hope to kill off both those heavily damaged units in my final turn now. Let's see. Turn 6. So, Rocklobber and the Sniffs hit, and they finish off the... I believe this is the Ancients that they kill there. Or I think it might be the Elementals, actually. I think they kill the Elementals. I choose not to charge the Bruiser into them. The War Trombone, as I was saying, goes after the Rhinosaurs and finishes them off. And yep, so I didn't want to send the Bruiser into the Elementals. I just wanted to shoot instead because I had 2 units of Sniffs to shoot at them and multiple Rocklobbers. I thought that had more chance of killing them than just 1 Bruiser. So they're gone. Fire Elementals, their defense 5, I think, not quite as high as Earth Elementals. We do get a turn 7 though. So the Shaman heads into the woods and tries to kill Harambe unsuccessfully. Then in my turn 7, I don't think I even took a picture of it, but I spread out my units as much as possible to get maximum points, and I managed to kill this guy with, I think it was with one of the Bruisers, possibly. Maybe this one. So I worked out to make sure I was in the maximum number of zones to control, because he hasn't got any scoring units left now. So I own this one, and I think the center line is about here. I think you can see the cursor there. So Harambe just stayed in here to control my central zone, and this one charged and killed him, I think, which allowed this Bruiser to control this area, whether he killed him or not. So 2 points, 3, 4, 5. And I killed off that guy as well. So all enemy units killed, which means I got maximum points from round 2. It was looking dicey at one stage when I double won those Rhinosaurs, but then I was bailed out of that by my Dwarven Ale. So that was nice. And that means 15 points for the win, 5 for the bonus victory points for controlling multiple zones, and 5 for the bonus kill points. So killing everything. So I'm clearly top of the table at this stage. Still on table 1. And I'm up against the Abyssals. Now, this game has particular interest because my opponent is a certain well-known former Rules Committee member who, going into this game, I was able to boast a 100% winning record against, even though that consists only of 2 games. So that's being put on the line here in a very big Table 1 encounter in round 3 of this tournament. And immediately looking at this list, this is one of the lists that I was hoping to avoid, because there are some things in there that are quite scary for what I've brought. I think this Abyssal list matches up quite well against me because it has several flying units. Let me look here. It's got Gargoyles, Tortured Souls, so 2 flying units there. It's got an Abyssal Champion with wings, who is like a mini Basusu, kind of, not quite as good. There is an Archfiend, which is a giant monster with wings, so 4 dangerous flying units. And flyers are the one thing I've skimped a little bit on flyer defense by taking out the 3rd War Trombone, which is a risk I took because I felt that since I've got the 2 Sniff regiments, they're quite handy at dealing with flyers as well, because they can turn on the spot and not shoot with any kind of penalty against flyers. So I thought I could live without the 3rd War Trombone, but this list made me think, I'm not sure, maybe I would have liked the 3rd Trombone in here against all this flying action. And the scenario is Dominate. So you can see that my opponent has consolidated everything into the middle, as you'd expect, because we want to be controlling within 12 inches of that point there. So I've put all my hordes, all my big scoring units in the middle of the battlefield, and I'm only flanking with things that he's not going to bother chasing after, like Rocklobber down here. And I've got my Sniffs on the flanks as well, because I want to be able to kind of swing round and also protect both sides from flyers as well. So I don't want to be too far out to the side with this one, because if something's going to land or attack my central war machines, I want to be able to turn around and pelt them with arrows. The firing lanes, I'm not too concerned about, because I know for a fact everything's going to be congested in this area here for the most part. So I just have to make sure everything can see the middle of the battlefield. He's got some quite tall units as well that I'm going to be able to bombard, such as Cronius. So we'll see how it goes. Let's go through the forces then. So on this side, Sniffs and one Rocklobber looking down over the battlefield. Middle, all my hordes with Bruiser in the middle there. The Flaggit just hiding behind this unit. None of them are touching the woods. I want to keep them out of it to prevent them being shot early on by anything. The Cronius has, I think, a breath attack, and the Efreet has fireball. So a bit concerned about them. In the middle, I've got the Giant around the woods as usual, because if someone's going to make a hindered charge, it might as well be the Giant since he can't be hindered. War Trombones kind of on this side, because that's where most of the flyers were concentrated. And Sniffs right out on this flank here. And in the opposition, we have a very nicely painted army here. We've got two regiments of Abyssal Horsemen there. In the middle, we've got the Archfiend with wings and lightning bolt, and it also has the Brew of Haste as well, so it can potentially charge 22 inches. Tortured Souls and the Gargoyles there. And over on this bit here, this is to the right as I look at it. Cronius with an Efreet hiding behind him. I really like this new Cronius model, actually. I do want to do Abyssals at some point. I've got one Efreet already, but I haven't painted it yet. That'll be my next army after the Undead Halflings are finished, probably. Then 2 units of lower Abyssals, 1 regiment and 1 horde. Then there's the Winged Abyssal Champion, who's going to be a bit of a nuisance, but he's only defense 5, I think. So not as scary as some of the flying defense 6 characters out there. Turn 1. So it goes to my opponent. So that's 3 games in a row where I've lost the turn 1 roll-off. And it means the Abyssal Champ is able to leap behind my lines immediately. Now, I'm not too scared about this, because I think, with luck, I could kill that dude in one go. Because I've got my Sniffs there that could turn around and shoot him without penalty. I've got the Grenade there. The Grenade has been very disappointing so far today, though. In the first 2 games, it's only hit... I can only remember it maybe hitting once so far. Up here, there's a bit of an advance with everything going up, the Horseman and the Fiend. There's woods here, so not everything can actually see them. You can see they're kind of consolidating into a big clump there. My turn 1 then. So Rocklobber immediately puts 2 damage onto the Archfiend. I would have liked to do more than that with a hit, but what can you do? Then the Sniffs, they put 4 damage onto the Tortured Souls while staying out of their charge range. So I'm confident I can kill them. Tortured Souls are only defense 4, I think. So shooting, plinking away at them with a unit that can back away if they start coming towards me and shoot them again. I'm quite confident I can deal with them. In the middle, I move up into the woods a bit in case he does a full-on advance forward now. And I am underestimating something horribly, which we'll get to in a second, but not yet. Now, you can see that I turned these units round and tried to kill the Abyssal Champion, but was not successful. I think I only put a couple of wounds on him. The Grenade missed, of course. They did a bit of damage, but not too much. And he stayed out of range of the War Trombones as well. Turn 2. So the Abyssal Champ goes in into one of the War Trombones, as expected. And the Archfiend lands behind my lines, doesn't charge anyone. This is probably the right move for him to land behind. It's going to force me... It's a risk if I don't turn anything around. If I rely on my shooting to kill it, then that is a big risk, because he could potentially get a devastating rear charge into one of my units then. Up here, there's not too much of a crazy advance from the Horsemen, and the 2 flying units are kind of waiting there as well. Cronius and the Efreet, though, they're going to dish out some major damage now. They actually kill the Troll Bruiser that was out in the open. So I think I drastically underestimated the shooting prowess of this combo here. they have about 40 dice between them with piercing, which is quite insane. So that's definitely something I'd be looking to add to my abyssal forces when I start putting that army together. And for some reason, these pictures are very blurry. Yeah, there we go. You can see the war trombones dead there as a result of the Abyssal Champion. Don't need to see that blurry picture any longer. Here you can see the lay of the land. So what I'm hoping for in the next turn, I'm going to send something forward a little bit to give him something to think about here, but not much. And down here, I'm going to converge all my shooting and hope to kill this thing. That's the most dangerous one because it can recharge my trolls, which would be really bad news. My turn too. So I move all my shooter units down here, looking to do some shooting on him. I don't think I'd put any damage on him. I tried to throw a grenade at him though, but missed again. The sniffs though, and this war trombone do put some damage onto the fiend. Not as much as I would hope, but I did get a decent nerve roll. So wavered him, which is enough. That's all I needed, just to stop him charging me in the next turn, because that could be absolutely critical. And these sniffs, which I chose not to shoot at the Archfiend, which was a risk, which paid off there, as you can see, but they put 5 more damage onto the Tortured Souls. Calculated risk there. 1 Rock Lobber hit in this turn puts 5 damage onto Cronius. So making a start on him. Now I'm thinking, looking back, once I've realised the devastating firepower of these 2 units, I shouldn't just be having a stare down with him, because he can just pick off another unit next turn, I think. So I should have maybe charged something into Cronius, even if it got them killed, because they were going to get killed by this anyway, most likely. But we'll see. I've also positioned these units, the Giant and the Bruiser, in such a way that they can countercharge anyone that decides to come into the front of the trolls there. Turn 3 for the Abyssals. So what do these bad boys do with that huge amount of shooting dice again? Well, they kill a troll unit. I think it's the troll unit that's in cover as well. So that just shows you how potent they are. So definitely I should have charged something in there instead of just staring down at them. That's something I'll learn for next time. Don't underestimate the shooting prowess of those 2 bad boys. Here, the other war trombone is killed by the Abyssal Champion. And he can just go around mopping up war machines now, really, if he wants, and I can't deal with him too well. The sniffs are going to be focused mainly on this big guy because he's more dangerous, and it's going to be difficult to take him out now. Turn 3. So Rock Lobber, what does it hit? Oh, more damage on Cronius. Got him up to probably 10 or 11 now. I'm not sure. That looks like a 5 there. Most people move 1 dice to 6 before they move on to the next one. But it looks like it might be 10 wounds. The sniffs, what do they do? Oh, more damage onto the Archfiend, and they waver him again. So I was hoping to kill him this round, but I'll take the waver definitely, because again, it stops him charging anybody. The Troll Bruiser has positioned himself up there, forwards, and you'll see from this angle what he's thinking here. So the Troll Bruiser has put himself in range to charge things. So the Abyssals are going to have to make a move now. If they don't, then he's going to be able to go after something. And if someone wants to charge him, they leave themselves open to maybe a Giant, and the Trolls will be able to go in next turn. But again, I choose not to charge in on Cronius with them, which could be a mistake again. We'll see. Is this overconfidence in the survivability of the Trolls going to come back and bite me? Turn 4. So double Abyssal Horseman charge into these Trolls here. This is the one with the Chalice of Wrath and Fury. So if they only get wavered, and I think these charges are possibly hindered as well. Let's have a look. That one probably isn't. This one might be. I'm not sure if they're actually touching the woods, or they might be touching those woods there. So I think one of them probably is. So you never know, they might survive that, and they are inspired. But he's ignoring the Bruiser there. Over here you can see he's pushed the Abyssals, the lower Abyssals forward. And I'm not sure if this was an intentional strategy or whether it was just luck, but I'm assuming it was intentional because he is a pretty damn good player. So he's put the regiment marginally further back than the Horde, which means if I charge the regiment and then center up, I can't slide down further than that point, which means that his Horde would be able to flank charge my Horde. And if they were perfectly level, then I would then slide down to center and then would get countercharged in the front by both units. So that's something for people to consider. When you're pushing up your battle line, take into account which units are further in front, which are behind, and how that's going to affect anyone's charges against you. Something you don't see a lot of people thinking about. Over here you can see he's positioned his gargoyles there, which means that the nimble bruiser cannot charge into his harbinger or Cronius back there, because there's not enough of a gap. And what do these suckers do this time? They waver the troll unit with the dwarven ale. Whew, so I've got away with one there, because if they'd killed this unit, that would have been possibly curtains, but they've survived and they have dwarven ale, so I might be able to shrug that off. And this guy kills a rock lobber. So they do kill that unit of trolls, but I've got this one still alive. So we'll see what I'm going to do in the next turn to try and counter this. My turn 4. So the giant and the bruiser charge into this unit here. I decide to ignore the gargoyles for now, wavering them. These trolls, they pass their dwarven ale roll and they charge back in there, starting the damage on the abyssal horseman and regenerating some of their wounds as well, which is nice. The sniffs kill off the archfiend. So he's dead now. He was wavered both turns he was behind my lines, and now he's been killed. So that's nice. Rotlobber, what does it do? It finishes off Cronius, that's what it does. So things are turning a little bit. I'm starting to kill things off. The Ifrit's still alive, though. So there's how it's looking. This is dominate scenario, remember. So you can see clearly that my opponent has more unit strength just surrounding this middle than I do. I've still got some units that are kind of way out of it on their own a bit. So, moving on. That's a dead pile there, by the way. They're not alive. Turn 5. The Ifrit. Well, he manages to kill off... Who was it he killed? I think he killed off this guy here, this Flaggit. So he's dead. The Abyssal Champion kills off another Rotlobber. This unit, which were wavered, the Abyssal Horsemen, I believe they must have had... I think they became wavered. Do they have Fury, perhaps? They probably do. So they were able to countercharge into the Bruiser. He's on some damage now, but he's alive. And these trolls become wavered again with the Dwarven Ale. So another good break for them there. Over here now, because in the previous turn I decided to... you can kind of call it taking the bait, but there was thinking behind it because I was fully aware of the consequences. So I charged in my rebel horde into that regiment, knowing that I would then get charged in the flank, because I don't think these guys would get killed in one hit, even in the flank by the lower abyssals, because they'll be hindered. So, and I've got a really high nerve on them. So I want them facing in this direction, ideally, because if you look at the rest of the battlefield, let's get to the last wide shot. You look at that, I don't want them coming over this way at all, because I'm looking very, very thin on the ground here. I've only got these trolls in the middle right there. So I want them to be looking in that direction. So I was quite happy to take that bait and accept the flank charge, assuming I could survive it for one round. So some method to the madness there. By turn 5, and look at this. I pass my Dwarven Ale roll, kill the horseman, the Bruiser and the Giant, kill the other horseman, and that is quite a big swing, and it's looking not too bad now. I just need to try and get into the dominate zone, though. So these flea bags move their way up onto the hill and try and shoot him down. Now, this may have been a mistake here, because, again, if we go back to the last wide shot, I should probably be thinking about the scenario now and thinking that I want to get them into the scoring area. They're a regiment, they're worth 2 points. So I could just move them like 20 inches to about here and get them within 12. Even if they then get charged by this guy, he probably wouldn't kill them in one go. So maybe I should have done that instead of moving 10 inches and shooting him. But I didn't really have my scenario head on as much as I should have done with him there. So, don't manage to kill him. I get another charge in on them, bit more damage. And here you can see how it's looking. Now, it's looking good for me, but this unit's damaged and the Ifrit is still alive. So I'm assuming they're going to be killed by the Ifrit. I've got them inspired by him. So there is an outside chance they'll live. But I'm not too confident about it. I've got the Giant and the Bruiser here. I've got my Sniffs up there. It's looking dicey. I'm not going to be able to catch the Gargoyles, probably. Turn 6 for the Abyssals. So this guy charges into the Sniffs, which is going to prevent them being able to get into the scoring zone now. So because I got a bit greedy and tried to kill him instead of moving into the scoring area, now he's been able to block them off. And yes, the Ifrit does kill off the Troll Horde, which leaves me woefully short of scoring units in the middle now. And they finish off the Rabble Horde. So it held them up for a bit, but now it's dead. So that's how it's looking before my turn 6. So I've got these two that can definitely get into the scoring area. So that'll be worth 2. But he's got a regiment in there. Or I think that might be a troop of Gargoyles, actually. And a horde of lower Abyssals. And chances of me killing that unit in this turn are very slim. So I'm going to need turn 7, really. Also, you can see that because the champion wouldn't balance on the edge there, we had to move him down onto the ground, but he's actually further up. My turn 6. So the Giant charges into the Ifrit from there down to there and kills him. I could have charged into the Harbinger and maybe got a really, really long, unlikely overrun into this unit here. But I thought I have to kill that Ifrit, otherwise he's going to kill the Giant or the Bruiser, and more of my scoring unit is just going to die, so he has to be killed. And then I'm just hoping for turn 7 at this stage. And the Bruiser's just working his way up there, threatening the Gargoyles a bit. I suppose he's not that much of a threat to them, but because they can fly away. But he's heading in that direction anyway, so he's in the scoring area. The Sniffs go back into him, but can't kill him. So they're paying the price for not just making a beeline straight for the dominate zone now. And that's the end. There is no turn 7. So, wow, that's going to be a loss. So I've only got 2 points in the scoring area, and the Abyssals have 3, 4. So it's a loss. Had this unit here, had I ignored this dude, charged in there, or moved at the double to get to within 12 inches of this, which I think was possible, then, yeah, because even if I'd only got to here and was slightly outside, with him blocking them off, I would have had more chance of getting in there from that point on, because I could have killed him, for example, and then overrun. So I really minimized my chances of getting them into the scoring zone by leaving them too far away too late in the game. And then had I got turn 7, the Gargoyles would have flown away a bit, so I couldn't have charged them. The Giant would have had to attack them. I would have had to try and lob a grenade, perhaps with him, if he could get in range of the Gargoyles, to try and kill them. And we'll see. It could have still ended up being a loss, but you never know. I've also got the Rock Lobber here, which could potentially have shot him or those Gargoyles. I actually forgot to turn it in turn 6. Should have really turned it to face in this kind of direction, but it didn't matter anyway because there was no turn 7. So the main mistake, I would say, there was this unit not being urgent enough in their desire to get into the centre. I was too happy to sit out on the flank shooting, and then the Trolls were slowly whittled down. And also leaving Trolls out in the open against Cronius and the Ifrit for their multiple attacks. Just they were picked off one by one. If I'd charged them in, perhaps, maybe, could have been different. But overall, very, very good, very, very close game. And that's going to be a loss. But I did get a few points, though, because I killed 5 points more than my opponent. I killed 1,305, he killed 1,300, if our maths was all correct. So we both picked up 5 bonus points for the scenario and kill points combined. So I'm going to get 10 points for that game, with 5, of course, for the loss. So it's a decently scoring loss, and I get bumped down to table 2 as a result of that. So you can see those 2 mammoth wins that I opened the tournament with are really helping me out, staying right in contention for the tournament now. So I think going into the last game, there were possibly 6 or 7 players who could actually still potentially win the tournament with a huge win. So we shall see. And I'm against ogres. Now, you may recognize this ogre army. That's because it was the army that I lost to in the previous tournament, Ultibash 6. I lost to these ogres in round 3 of that tournament. And I've got an instant chance for revenge. So it's exactly the same list that I faced that time, except with one addition, which is a unit of a troop of Red Goblin Scouts, which are exactly 100 points, because you may remember that prior tournament was 1,900. So this game is push. So we have 1 token each, and there is 1 in the center, which can be picked up. You get 1 victory point for holding a token, and you get 2 victory points if you hold it entirely within your opponent's half. So you can see that you can actually see on the picture here, his push token that he's using is actually the severed goblin head that he received from beating me at the last tournament. So that's just some grade A psychological warfare going on there. And am I going to put everything into killing that unit just because it's bringing the head of one of my fallen comrades? We shall see. So my strategy here is, you can see I've got this big block of meaty death here. Load of trolls, the bruisers, trombones behind, and the giant. I want this to spend the whole game fighting this. And this unit of trolls here is what I want to pick up the second push token with the screen of the Rabble Horde. So the Rabble Horde are just going to walk up with them behind and hoping that when the Rabble Horde then charges off at something, this troll unit can just then pick up the second token and they'll be safe for at least a turn because the Rabble will be screening them. So remains to be seen whether that's going to work, but that's the plan. This is really a really elaborate big distraction block here. I want this just to be involved in a big meat fest in the center while this block here tries to win the scenario. Let's go through the deployment then. So on my left flank, I've got 1 unit of Sniffs on their own. There's the big block of meaty death. All my rock lobbers in the middle aiming at this area. But that's kind of a bonus because I'm mainly making sure they can see that unit of shooters up there because they are the biggest threat to my plan because they could take out the trolls who are going for the loot token. So I've got all my rock lobbers able to see the shooters, and they're also looking over this whole area here. So I can see if he decides to send anyone towards that. So it's a bit of a deterrent to keep him away. So hopefully he'll be more inclined to fight in this zone here, which gives me a chance to collect that, like I said. So often I'll try and go into games like this with a plan like this, but usually you have to change halfway through because something either goes horribly wrong or horribly right that you weren't expecting, and you're able to capitalize or you have to make up for something. So you can see the line of sight there that these have to the shooters on the hill. I feel that's really important. And I've also positioned all my rock lobbers out of range of his shooters. That was a mistake I made at the last tournament because I put 2 or 3 of my rock lobbers were within range for him to shoot at them, I think. So that was a bad move. Since I have longer range, that shouldn't be able to happen with my superior deployment because I've got more drops. So I should be able to get them out of range. So it was a mistake last time. And this is also the army that encouraged me to change my list and bring in the giant instead of some of the small shooting attacks. So slightly more combat heavy. Here we go. And you can see here, there's that little, this is the attempted scenario winning block here. And over on this flank, I've got a Flaggit and the Sniffs, who are also going to be trying to take out the Ogre shooters, just to help out the rock lobbers. So he's got his Goblin Scouts over there, which are kind of counter chaff to my Sniffs. He's got his shooters on the hill, which are primed to rain down fire on anyone that goes for the push token. In the middle, he's got Chariot Regiment, a Chariot Warlord. He's got some warriors, and the warriors actually have the Chalice of Wrath. He's got Grokgamok's Braves. He's got Grocky himself. I've actually written him down as Grocky Balboa on my sheet here. He's got 2 Warlocks with Wind Blast. One of them has the Scarlet Moor's Fanulian Amulet, so he's got extra potent Lightning Bolt, and one of them has the Black Iron Crown, so all his spells are boosted. So Wind Blast is quite important here, because Anytime you're equally fast as your opponent, so ogres versus trolls is a good example, whoever has Wind Blast can prevent that one turn where everything's able to charge. If he pushes himself into his own charge range, he can then pick which of my units he's going to push out of charge range, which means if I'm going to charge in, it's going to be 1 or 2 units rather than 3 or 4. So a Wind Blast, very underrated, and not enough people take it. I've toyed with it a few times in my lists, but not at the moment. Over on this side, he's got a second Chariot Horde. This one has Dwarven Ale, the other one has the Potion of the Caterpillar. So, turn 1, and I do get it this time. First time I've won the roll-off in this tournament, so my Sniffs over on the left-hand flank, they get a double 6 to waver this unit of chariots, but they are the ones with Dwarven Ale, so they might be able to ignore it. Another really nicely painted army here, like the little leaves going on. Then, in the centre, I've pushed forward, but obviously not to within charge range of anything, but I do want to get forward. And you can see here that I'm keeping kind of not exactly giving away what I'm going straight for, because I wanted to move directly forwards with everything as fast as it would go in this little block here. So I obviously couldn't turn and still move out the double. So next turn, I'm going to hopefully start pivoting this way and then push these guys in with the cover of the forest, possibly, depending if he pushes into it with the chariots or not. And then the trolls up behind to try and get that. So we'll see how it goes, but plans do have to change on the fly. Rock Lobbers, what do they do? And the Sniffs. Well, I managed to put 7 damage onto the shooters, but I don't waver them, though. So they are going to get at least 1 round of shooting before I can finish them off. Turn 1 for the Ogres. So these chariots pass their Dwarven Ale headstrong roll, and they move up. The Red Goblin Scouts are positioning themselves so they can charge my Sniffs. Then the shooters, what do they take aim at? Well, they have a shot at my Sniffs over there, but with the Inspiring nearby, they double one them, and I don't think he uses his reroll on it because he doesn't think it's going to be that crucial. You don't want to use it in turn 1 on a chaff unit, really, but it could actually be important in this game. Because of my plan, I need to keep this flank of his, I need to clear it out so he's got nothing to rain down on my troll unit that I'm hoping to take the scenario with. So that could have actually been useful to try the reroll there. It would have only been able to reroll 1 dice, though, so it was kind of unlikely that it would work. So I can understand why he didn't. Then here, he's got his Wind Blast and Lightning Bolt Shamans, or Warlocks. What do? Lightning Bolt, 2 damage onto the trolls. So there's how it's looking, and at this point, I would very much like to be able to do lots of charges, but I think he's only in charge range of the giant right now. But again, I can lure him in a bit, maybe possibly back up with a few units. They're not going to be charged. We shall see. So it will be longer before they can be charged because he does move the chariots into the woods, so I think they might be in range of something. Turn 2 for me. So these guys, they try to charge his his Red Goblin Scouts, because I think I could take them out in one go on the charge, but they fail the Yellow-Bellied test, so they can't do anything now. So that's unfortunate. I don't use my reroll on it, though, because I go for the grenade instead, and that's luckily enough to waver them. Just. I think that's only about the 2nd time it's hit anything today, that grenade. Very disappointing. Now, I decided to send the giant in on its own, which you might think is a suicidal move, especially when you consider that I end up doing 0 damage. I did 1 damage, but then they have Iron Resolve, so they got it back immediately. But there is a plan behind this, and I'll show you when we get to the wide shot. So over here, I move these guys into the woods a bit just to hinder the charge of the chariots when they get there, and shoot them again. So 3 damage on them. So here's how the battlefield is looking, and I position my trolls. There is something I forgot to do that kind of spoiled this plan, which I'll tell you about in a second. So you can see I've started turning them this way, and that means his chariots have now got a choice because they're getting dangerously close to being within charge range of the rabble here. So are they going to charge in? Are they going to move backwards? What are they going to do? And here, the giant going in, I would have liked to do 5 damage, which would have been knocked down to 4 with Iron Resolve. Because once you get these Braves, they have a really high nerve. I think it's around 20. So once you've got them up to about 5, that's the point at which, because they're only defense 4, you think a double charge with a Troll Horde and a Bruiser, if I can get that in on them, when they're already on 5 damage, then that can actually take them out. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the damage. The second phase of this plan, I was hoping the perfect dream scenario would be that this unit, I don't think this one actually can, but something useful tries to flank charge the giant, and then maybe he just does terribly on his rolls and doesn't kill it, leaving a flank open. And if he uses Grokagamok to flank charge the giant, he would be within charge range of these trolls up here, who I feel could take him out in one go, potentially. He'd probably be in charge range of this bruiser as well. So if I could kill Grocky, and then that would, because I would have units here then, these warriors would swing round, the chariots might even come in this direction, and this guy definitely would. They're going to go back into the giants. So if I can get a fight going on over here, then I've got the numbers advantage in terms of units with the push token right there, which would allow me to continue the plan of sending in the rabble to blockade this area and letting this troll unit pick that up and everything else just piling in, starting a fight over here. So sending in the giants, it was a calculated decision to send him in on his own, like some kind of nutbag. But it didn't do any damage. So phase 1 of that didn't work out. And the other phase is the fact that I forgot to move my trombones up behind to stop these trolls being wind blasted out of charge range. So it's kind of a double whack there, a double blunder. So we'll see if that comes back to bite me. Turn 2 for the ogres. So he does get a charge in now on the sniffs with the chariot regiment. They don't have that many attacks though, and he is hindered. So they may well survive that. Over here, he does go for the double charge with the with the Braves and Grokagamok, but as I said, the wind blasting does send them back too far now, so they're no longer in charge range, all because I forgot to move the trombones up there. So a major mistake there on my part, I think, and it was a good plan, but I just forgot certain elements of it. And over here, he winds blast those trolls backwards as well. So they're not in charge range of anybody either now. So if I wanted to charge anyone in, it would just be the bruiser, which I don't really want to do. And a very blurry picture of the giant's death. You can see how many dice were up on the wounds though, so he just gets totally obliterated in one go. So that's a bit disappointing. So the plan has to be modified now, because I don't have a fight going on here. I can't charge in with things left and right. If I send in just a bruiser, Grok would just kill that on his own. So he wouldn't have to then throw in the support. So I'm going to have to modify the plan a bit, and this is when I think about starting to retreat. So instead of getting the fight here, I now want the fight to be here, deep in my half. I'm not even going to attempt to take the token off his warlock there. I just want this big fighting block to advance into this area, away from the token now. So I'm going to start going backwards. And his chariots have actually moved out of the woods now. So that means I can possibly get something done with these now without the threat of being charged. So I can start thinking about them a bit more seriously. He wavers them only, which means that the chariot regiment are held up still, which is okay. My turn 3. So you can see I'm moving backwards a bit off the hill so they can't be seen. Harambe the Bruiser is the only thing in charge range now. So anything that charges him will be countercharged mercilessly by everything under the sun, probably. And the Rotlobbers, what do they hit this time? Well, I put 5 damage with one of them onto the warriors. So just making a start on them. And like I was saying earlier, anytime you have cavalry or ogres or anything, or trolls where the nerve is about 17-ish, unless it has regen, like trolls do, and they can get some of it back. If you can get them up to 5 wounds, then medium hard-hitting units, for example, ogres and troll hordes, where they can generally not take out a unit of equal strength in one hit. But if you've already put 5 wounds on it with a Rotlobber or some other kind of shooting, then they can definitely take them out in one hit. So that's the ideal amount of damage I want to get on a unit before I get to them with my trolls. So my sniffs move up a bit here, and they finish off the ogre shooters, which is nice. So that's that threat gone. So that stage of the plan is working. But the grenade misses the Red Goblin Scouts, though. Those shooters there are actually dead. But there wasn't really a place to put the dead pile at this venue. There was no space between the tables, so they either had to go under or just in the corner. So the grenade missed again, so they're going to be able to get a charge in on my sniffs now. And you can see that over here, I've gone on to the next phase of the plan. As I said, these guys have all turned inwards, so the rabble are going to try and push beyond that objective, and then the trolls will try and pick it up. So I'd want his block to come and fight down here now. Also, by retreating, I'm giving myself a bit more of an option to deal with these chariots as well, so they won't get into the rear of my battle line. And I tromboned them as well, I think, and put a bit of damage on there. That trombone wasn't able to get in range yet, though. So turn 3 for the ogres. He does charge into the sniffs there with his red goblin scouts. He could kill them because they're already wounded. He goes back into the sniffs again. In the middle, does he use Wind Blast or Lightning Bolt? It's Lightning Bolt, and he takes out one of the rock lobbers. And he also puts a damage point onto Harambe the Bruiser with the other Lightning Bolt. And the red goblin scouts do kill off the sniffs. So I've still got this guy who can try and grenade them to death, but we'll see whether that actually happens or not, because it's been very unsuccessful so far, and they turn to face that direction. So they're threatening the rear and flank of my troll unit that are supposed to be winning me the game now. So that's not looking great, and the other sniffs on this side are dead now as well, from the chariots. So there's how it looks in the middle. I'm going to have to turn them, because I don't want them charged in the rear by a thunderous charge troop of red goblin scouts. That would be an embarrassing way to die. And I can't rely on the grenade hitting them, so I'm going to have to turn them to face that way a bit, unfortunately. But you've got to improvise, and you can see that he's advanced up with things as well now. He can't see over the hill, so he still can't see them, because they're not actually on the hill. They've got less than 50% on it. So again, Harambe the Bruiser is the only thing that can really be seen. Turn 4. So both the trombones head over there, but they don't do a lot of damage to the chariots, unfortunately. And I back away even more now. So I turn these trolls as well, so getting things at an angle, so if he does charge in. But again, I'm drawing him down here. He's not particularly biting as much as I wanted, though. I wanted him to just pile in into this area and get a big fight going, but he's hanging back a bit. He's maybe conscious of this objective here not being stolen. So obviously, I'm sure he has a strategy as well. It's not easy to just manipulate your opponent into doing whatever you want. And here, now, you can see, let's see the wide shot. You can't see it very well, but he's positioned his chariots up here now, which means that the rabble can actually see them. Got the center of the units there, and I can see that side of the unit, which means I'm going to be able to charge them now because they were just within range. So I'm not sure whether he intentionally left them in sight to be charged there, but my plan was to push them this way and block off the entrance there. But this is an opportunity I felt I had to take to charge those chariots because they are a threat to this essential unit here. So I've got to go in there with the rebel. So in they go. I put some damage on them. So it's a fight I feel I'll win here at long run because I've got support as well down here. I've got trolls if I need them to come up here and help and just ignore the objective, which I hope I don't have to do. But he's going to lose his thunderous charge in this fight here, and there's high nerve on the rebel. And then when it comes down to just a counter charge battle, I'm not even going to be hindered. So I think I may just win this fight. Here I move the Flaggit behind the Red Goblin Scouts and try to grenade them again, but it misses yet again. This has been the worst ever performance from the grenade in a tournament ever. The Rock Lobbers have been perfectly average throughout the day, though. They're getting 1 point something hits a turn, which is what you expect. Turn 4 for the Ogres. So he gets a flank charge in on the Rebel with them, but I don't think they became hindered. And the Chariots will be back in as well, but he shouldn't kill them in one go from this because they've got good nerve and that unit doesn't have too many attacks. So I hope they'll survive a round. Here you can see he moves the Braves onto the hill and he charges the Chariot into the War Trombone that was at the back because the Chariot's height 3 and can see over the height 2 hill. Everything else is just positioned around there. Look at the 2 Warlocks there. They wind blast those trolls backwards. You'll see the effect of this on the wide shot in a minute. And you can see that that trombone is dead as a result of the Chariot. 10 damage onto this Rebel Horde, which isn't enough to kill them, so I'm quite satisfied with that. Okay, so you can see how this is looking now. And you might think this isn't looking ideal, but just off camera, there's something you can't see, which is the wind-blasted troll horde that he blasted down here. He's actually blasted them into the front arc of these ogre warriors that are on 7 wounds. So if I was to charge them in the flank, I would kill them, but I would have to be quite lucky to overrun onto this objective. So I wouldn't be able to pick it up yet. What I would like to do, though, is charge them in the front, because I'm probably still going to kill them even hindered, because they're on 7 damage already. And I can pick that up at the end of my charge, which means I can then charge these trolls into the flank of those scouts there. I can charge the rabble back into the chariots, and I can have 2 tokens picked up with nothing really threatening this unit down here that are picking up the tokens. So it's a change of plan midway through. Decided, you know what, I'm just going to grab that token with this troll unit. I'm not going to try and engage in a fight with them. I'm just going to use them to go for this. So turn 5. These trolls at the back do charge into the Braves, put some damage on them. And the Bruisers are getting involved. So these trolls do actually move up and kill. They charge in from the little hut, which you saw them wind blasted towards. They managed to kill off, they finished off the warriors, and they picked up the loot token, the push token at the end of their charge. This bruiser bruised his way in there to this warlock, because I don't want him to be able to use his spells next turn. And this bruiser is getting involved as well. Let's see where he came from. So, oh, there he is down there. So he charged them in the flank as well. So let's get back to where we were. So there we go. The bruiser went into the flank of that horde of warriors, and these trolls went into the front, just to make absolutely sure I killed them, because I didn't want them countercharging my trolls that are essential now, because they're holding the 2nd push token. So he helped out. He went into the warlock, and now it's looking really good for me, because they've got 1 push token, they've got the other one, and they do kill off the Red Goblin scouts as well. They haven't killed off the chariots yet, but I'm going to be able to charge them with the trolls in a minute. Over on this side, you can see that I've moved the trombone out of harm's way, and it's just going to be randomly tromboning everything it can until the end, trying to inflict more damage. Turn 5 for the ogres. So before we go into that, my battle plan here for this unit, they're going to try and run away with that push token now, because they're already very close to the opposition half. They're just going to head straight in there and just keep running as fast as they can. And I'm going to try and block up his advance after me with the bruisers, because it's hopefully nearly the end of the game. I'm hoping we don't get turn 7, because I might not be able to escape then. So you can see that he goes back in there onto the rabble horde, trying to finish them off once and for all. He sends the chariots into the back of the trolls, the braves into the front, so he's going to eat them for breakfast. He's going to kill that rock lobber with the chariot. This guy carrying his push token has moved well into my half now, and to within 12 inches of some of the rock lobbers, so they can't shoot him. So that troll unit's dead, of course, from 1 billion wounds. That troll bruiser is dead from Grokka Gamok, which I'm happy to accept, because I stopped one of the warlocks from shooting this turn and chaffed them up a little bit. He, of course, kills the rock lobber. So I'm taking casualties, but now it's not a game of killing things for me. It's a game of, can I make this unit escape and block his advance towards me? Because he's got chariots that are quite fast. He's got braves looking in this direction. Grokka Gamok is the main threat, because I don't want to be moving away and then leaving my rear or flank exposed to him, because that would be a guaranteed death sentence for a horde of trolls. Grokka Gamok in the flank is just not something you want to be doing with your life. Up here, he doesn't manage to kill off that unit yet, so I'm going to get a double charge on them now. And that is how it's looking at the end of his turn. My turn 6, potentially my final turn. The War Trombone finishes off the Braves, which is nice. They're now dead. Some nice kill points there. These trolls carrying the push token from the middle have moved as far away as they can, and I've positioned them in such a way so that Grokka Gamok cannot see them, because Grokka Gamok has been charged by Harambe the Bruiser, and then I've positioned this unit so that his angle, he just can't see them to charge them. That was my sole objective in their positioning. I tried running them in, let's see, tried running them in this direction here, but there was no way to avoid his line of sight, so I had to get at a different angle. So I went into the woods here, which means he can't see them, so he can't charge them. And that's very important. So nothing can actually charge them in turn 6 now. So unless there's a turn 7, I'm going to win this game, unless he kills them with shooting. But they're in cover now, so it's going to be harder. And they're undamaged. So I put 3 damage on Grokagamok, but not much. The Chariot regiment at the back there is killed with the double charge of the trolls and the rabble. The rabble don't really want to be all the way over here. They would like to be going back down there to chaff up the enemy and help this troll unit escape, but I just want them to get out of the way as well. And if they'd turned round, they would have been blocking this unit's advance. So I just decided, okay, they're kind of out the game. I'll just make them run away as well, just so I don't block them in. So I've got 2 push tokens in the opponent's half at the moment. And that's how it's looking. He's got 1 in mine, I've got 2 in his. If it ends on turn 6, I'm probably going to win now. His turn 6, what does he do? Well, he charges into the War Trombone. He's just trying to mop things up with units that can't affect the game any other way now. So the Chariot's going to kill that. He charges a double charge with Grokagamok and the Chariot Horde. The Chariot Horde weren't able to reach my fleeing troll unit up there, so they decide they're going to double charge into Harambe the Bruiser just to guarantee they kill him. And this guy, this Warlock, moves up there, and with his lightning bolt, he puts 1 damage onto these trolls that are carrying the vital cargo. The Chariot kills the War Trombone, of course. This one moves up to... He moves really far into my territory with this thing and too close for the Rocklobber to shoot him next turn. But I don't think he actually attacks it this turn. And look at that. 11 damage onto Harambe the Bruiser, and he double ones him. He rolled enough to kill him first of all, and then on the reroll, he rolled a double 1, and he'd already used his reroll, his 1 dice reroll earlier on in the game to kill something else. So that could have potentially won me the game there, because if it ended on turn 6, I was going to win anyway. But now, if we get turn 7, I still have a really good chance of winning. Because Harambe is going to be able to charge back into Grokagamok. So as long as I can keep the trolls either out of his charge range or out of his line of sight, I've got something else I can block up the chariots with as well, because I've got a Flaggit over there somewhere. So now I'm probably going to win unless he can kill my unit of trolls with shooting, which is quite unlikely. So that is quite a nice break for me there. Turn 7, we do get a turn 7, so I didn't just win immediately at the end of turn 6. I'm going to have to go through turn 7 and have a bit more drama. So Harambe goes back into Grokagamok to block him up, and the Flaggit parks his carcass in front of the Chariot regiment, so they're not going to be able to get through to get to the trolls, who are just running away as fast as they can in that direction. So they're actually out of Grokagamok's charge range anyway, so I didn't even need to block his line of sight now. But I decided I'd have a go at trying to kill him anyway. Didn't succeed, though. So really, the only way I'm not going to win, it could be turned into a draw if he can kill this unit with shooting now, because nothing can charge them in turn 7 because of that double 1. If he hadn't double 1'd the Bruiser, I wouldn't have been able to run them away, because I would have been within charge range of the Chariot regiment. So I would have had my back to the chariots if I ran away, which would have been triple attacks from the Chariot Horde. So I would have had to just turn round and look at them and take the front charge from probably Grokagamok and the chariots in the front, which is probably favourable to taking a rear charge from the chariots. I would have to work out the exact stats on that, but it sounds more favourable. So it would have been dicey in turn 7 had he not double 1'd that guy. Although, to be fair, I still would have been able to block the chariots to stop them charging. And I think Grok would have been able to overrun, so he would have been able to get within his charge range. And so I would have been able to block the chariots regardless of whether they overran or not. And that means that Grokagamok would have I would have had to turn round to face him. So he would have been Grocky hindered against the trolls in the final turn to try and kill them and get a draw, or a win by snatching that token off them. So, it would have been dicey. But as it is, you can see he's got to try and kill this unit now with shooting to get a draw. His turn 7. He's going to kill off that thing. Kill off the Rock Lobber with his Warlock, which he does in a second. He's double charged the Chariot and Grok into Harambe, and he charges into the Flaggit. He's just going for kill points now, as you have to. The Warlock doesn't even try and kill these trolls because he thinks they're so far away from the nerve that he doesn't even want to try and get the really lucky roll. He just tries to finish off this unit to get more kill points, but he doesn't succeed. I think. Actually, he might do. He does waver this Flaggit, and he kills Harambe. He kills the Rock Lobber, and you can see he is now carrying this token in my half for 2 victory points. But both of these units are alive with push tokens in his half of the table. So I get 4 victory points. And yeah, he did kill that unit. He did lightning bolt them off. So he got more kill points. But the kill point stats at the end, he killed 1,115. I killed 1,010. It was very, very close on kill points until I started throwing units in his way to sacrifice them to run away with the tokens, which is what ended up winning me the game. So I'll take that. I got 4 victory points, which gives me a bonus of 4. He got 2 for this guy down here. He got 4 bonus for kill points. I got 2 bonus for kill points. But of course, my 15 points for the win definitely outshines the 5 for a loss. So that's another win. And I think that was... there was obviously an element of luck to it, but it was in my favour. I think I played most of my moves well after the blunder of not blocking Wind Blast on the Troll Horde, which messed up part of my plan over here. But I think from that point on, I think I played it very well and managed to get this unit with the push token to safety. And it was a 50-50 dice roll whether we would even have a turn 7. So if it ended on turn 6, I would have just won regardless. And then had we had a turn 7, even if he killed the Bruiser, it's still not a guarantee that Grok would be able to kill this unit that was only on 1 point of damage while going into the hindered area. Let's see, would he have been hindered? Were they all the way into the woods? Let's see. Going back to when they were only just reaching the woods. Yes, I could have turned them round to face this way, so Grok would have been hindered when he charged them, which means he would have been less likely to kill them. But he still could have done. If anyone could do it, it would be him. But the odds were in my favour of winning as we were approaching the end of the game. He needed everything to go in his favour. He needed to kill this guy, which he didn't. He needed to get a turn 7, which he did. And then he would have needed to kill the Horde while hindered, which was possible. But it's a lot of... Once you're stacking up lots of things you need to succeed with, then one of them going awry, which it did in this case, is going to throw you off. So I think I played that pretty well at the end of that game. And that's a 3rd win out of 4 at this tournament. So let's... Is that the... Oh, there we go. So that's the final picture. I only had 3 units left alive, but crucially, they were both... Only 1 point of damage between them. They were both carrying the tokens. My initial game plan, it had to be modified slightly because an opportunity arose that I felt I had to take, where the Ogre Warriors were within range for me to charge them and pick up the token in the same move, which also left... They had their flank open to a Troll Bruiser as well, and these chariots here that were ripe for the charging from the rabble couldn't resist taking that. So I think pretty sweet result in the end, and it was a very, very good, as you can see, very razor-thin close game. You may recall when I played against this army in the previous tournament, it was razor close as well, and had I got a turn 7 in that game, then I could have definitely won it. But as it was, I ended up losing. So that's 1-1 between these 2 armies now. 2 painfully close games. We were both pained by the losses, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll get to have round 3 at some point, with hopefully maybe very similar lists, because I think they are very evenly matched. It was very, very close, very, very good. Lots of points. And let's have a look at the final leaderboard then, shall we? So there we go. I managed to finish in 2nd place, which is going to mean another trophy. 95 points. Now, I believe everyone gets 25 points for having a fully painted army and getting their list in on time. So I think that accounts for the numbers being very high. So I only finished 2 points off the lead as well. And if you think about it, in that game 1, where I double wand a unit at the end, then that unit was worth 1,115 points. So I would have been just behind on kill points and 1 point behind on victory points from the tournament winner. So if I'd got just 2 more tournament points at any stage during the tournament, for example, if I'd got my Fleabag Sniffs, if I hadn't made a bit of a mistake with them in game 3 and got them into the middle, then perhaps I could have even won the tournament despite losing a game. Because the first 2 wins were so gigantic, that just got me a ton of points. In the game that I lost, I managed to pick up a few points as well, because that was very close. And the final game, managing to win the scenario, sacrificing going for kill points just to try and win the actual scenario, because that's the most important thing. So there we go, second place. I don't know how someone got 6,203 kill points. That must be a mistake. That must be a 5, not a 3. Because I don't think you can have anything in Kings of War that's less than 5 points. So third highest kill points, and very, very pleased with that. So obviously that results in a trophy, which is quite transparent looking in this picture, but you can see the little cup there being presented to this handsome devil right here, representing our fallen comrade Barry Chuckle there with my Chuckle Brothers Portal t-shirt. And there it is, sitting in the trophy cabinet alongside the 3rd place trophy from the previous Northern Kings event. So surely if this trend continues, then next time it's going to be 1st place. In theory. I'm sure that's how it works anyway. Well, I'm very pleased with that result in the end. And lots of really, really close games. All of them apart from game 1 were very close. Even though game 2 was actually the one I got the most points for, it was still very close. It swung both ways at various points. So games 2, 3, and 4 were all razor thin. And game 1, of course, was a little bit of a smush fest. So very, very good. Good sporting behaviour from all my opponents. And I'm not going to reveal who I voted for my 1st and 2nd most sporting player, but all of them were in contention, I can tell you that much. And let's whiz back to the start. I haven't had too many comments on this live, but I'm not expecting any because it's a bit of an unusual time of day for doing one of these. It just happened to be the time when I had a couple of hours spare in the day, so I thought I'd squeeze it in now. And hopefully everyone's found this very educational and informative. If anyone has any comments or questions about any of these games or any advice on being a Goblin Master, any questions on how to become a Goblin Master, feel free to drop them in. Let me know what you're looking forward to when I've finished with the Goblins, because I'm going for my Undead Rordians, which is going to be a Rordia list, but using Skeleton Halflings. I'm going to use that probably after Clash of Kings, which I'll probably take the Goblins to. After that, it's going to be Rordia for a while. And this tournament as well, someone was saying on a previous tournament video that a lot of my games seem to come down to whether I kill something with the Rocklobber in turn 1. And I can definitely say this tournament was... none of my games were really decided by the Rocklobbers. They were perfectly average throughout the day, I would say. There was never a game where they just hit everything, and they didn't have a game where they missed everything either. So if they can keep performing like that, I'll be quite happy, because it makes them more reliable, and I can use them for what I want, which is to chip damage onto a unit before it gets to my lines so my trolls can kill it in one hit, which is the goal behind the Rocklobbers, really. But often they end up either overperforming and just killing something in the first turn, or underperforming and not landing a single hit for the entire game, and really I'm just a few hundred points down because they're useless effectively in that situation. The Holy Hand Grenade was terrible in this tournament. It only hit about 3 times and did about 5 damage in total over the whole thing, even though I was throwing it on average about 4 times a game probably. So that was pretty awful. The Fleabag Sniffs are amazing, I think. Some games they did better than others, but they always did something. And I think they're a perfect combo with the Rocklobbers, because I'm always trying to get that first turn. then being able to shoot in turn 1 without hindrance is something that just tips them over the edge compared to spitters. They can also advance, they can turn and shoot down the side of enemy lines, they can make the enemy turn and face them. And if you leave a flank for them, they can charge you and still do some damage, because of course if I'm charging the flank, I don't have to worry about yellow-bellied, as you saw when I was charging into the... I attempted to charge the Red Goblin Scouts in the final game and rolled a 1, so I couldn't charge them. You may be saying, well, why didn't you just shoot them? Well, if I charged them, then it would have put me out of the shooting arc of the shooters, the ogre shooters, which I believe were still alive at that point. So that was the thinking behind that move, but it didn't pay off because I rolled a 1. I rolled a few double 1s in this tournament, but none of them came back to bite me particularly that I can think of. My opponents got a couple as well, the crucial one being the one on Harambe the Bruiser in the final game. That meant I was almost guaranteed to win regardless of whether it went to turn 7 or not, where before that it was maybe something around 60-40 in my favour. So obviously when you can take anything to a guarantee, that's pretty sweet. I don't think I used my reroll in the final game because there was just never an occasion when I only just missed something. It was either I'd killed something utterly or I was nowhere near it, so there was no point wasting it. So I used my reroll in all the other games though. In the first game it made no difference because I rolled another 1 on a double 1. But there you go, that just happens sometimes. And they were all nicely painted armies I faced as well. Very tasty looking. And we're almost back to the beginning now. And I'm hoping to get some more battle reports in this format as well soon. People seem to react positively to those, and it's very little editing time. So that should be good. I've got a Dead Zone tournament coming up at the weekend. Dead Zone After Dark, which is going to be fun. So there'll be a report on those games. And before that, I am playing some Age of Sigmar as well. So there'll be some battle reports on that soon, for a change. And after that, I think the next event is another Dead Zone tournament at WAFCon, which is a big 2-day Dead Zone event. And that's in about a month's time, I think. I'll have to check. But there'll be a report on that as well. I haven't got any Kings of War tournaments booked until Clash of Kings now, but I am on the lookout if there's anything available nearby or anything I can possibly get a lift to that's further away. We shall see. Keeping my eyes peeled for that. Don't forget to check out the various links in the description, the social media nonsense, and the various ways that people occasionally like to throw money at me for some reason, which is always nice. And anything else I want to add before I depart? Any other thoughts on the list? I think the trolls, the items on them, I think Dwarven Ale, Chalice of Wrath must have items. The third unit, I'm always on the fence about what to take with them. I've tried different items, I've tried no item. I suppose if you keep that unit of trolls out of harm's way more than the others, having no item on them isn't that big of a deal. Let's see, anything else I want to touch on from my list before I wrap this one up? The War Trombones, I was kind of missing a third one at times. It only really seemed to cost me in game 3 though. As I said, the Fleabag Sniffs do give you some support against flyers as well, but maybe that's one thing that I'm slightly lacking because I've taken out the Diadem of Dragonkind, Flaget, and a War Trombone, and a Wizard with Lightning Bolt to fit the Giant in there. So I am a little bit down on the anti-flyer devices, which may just be something I have to accept. But we'll see. I might continue to tweak this list. Maybe I'll drop one of the Rock Lobbers, you never know. When hell freezes over. Yeah, because the Rock Lobbers are a lot of fun, I think. I like them. I'm sure they're not fun to play against when they hit every time. That's a bit of a nightmare. But that didn't happen at this tournament, definitely. They were just nice and average. However, after Clash of Kings, if I continue with this list up until that point, I won't be taking Goblin Rocklobber lists to tournaments again after that. Because I think I've proven my worth with this kind of list by getting a third place and now a second place trophy. So once they've been to Clash of Kings, the ultimate proving ground with this kind of list, I don't think I need to keep running it into the ground and playing it endlessly. So after that, I'll be moving on to the Rordia. And then if I go back to goblins again, I'll try something totally different. Maybe the all combat goblins, which were a lot of fun as well. So I think it's time to say good night out there, even though it's not really night for most of us. It's just getting up to around about lunchtime for me, I think. So with that, I will say good afternoon out there, whatever you are.